This is a great picture as a final picture for the year 2021. I would say that the year stinks, but garlic doesn't stink to me. It's my favorite fragrance. We're going to be using a number 6, a number 2, a rigger, and a very fine liner today for this painting. We're also going to be using some misket to misket the fine roots and some salt. If you look at my picture, you'll see where I've misketed. That's to come. We'll be using burnt umber today, your darker brown. We'll be using burnt sienna today, which is your warm brown. We'll be using cadmium yellow, which is your light yellow or lemon yellow. And we're also going to be using yellow ochre. And then, of course, we'll be using black for our shadowing. This is going to be a picture of dry brushing, dry brushing, dry brushing, and more dry brushing. If you look at this picture now, you can see where I misketed. I misketed all of the fine roots on the garlic. You want to make them go in different directions. You don't want them all just to be straight up and down. So when you do your dry brushing, basically all of the cloves of garlic are done the same. So I'm going to do one almost in totality, and then I will move on and do a couple. But I am doing them all basically the same. I can almost imagine right now my friend Marion's blood pressure slowly rising when I mention the word dry brushing. But this is a picture that is quite a bit of dry brushing in different colors. Sometimes in watered down black, sometimes in umber, and sometimes in sienna or yellow ochre, depending on what colors you want in your garlic. You do want to leave some whites. You don't want to color each of your garlic cloves in totally. So when you're dry brushing, less is better. You can always add. You can add tomorrow, you can add in a day, you can add next year. You can always add, but you cannot take off. So when you're working on your garlic, less is better. You can salt some of your dry brushing strokes. If you have a stroke of dry brushing that you made a little bit more solid than you want to, or even if you made it solid because you wanted to, then you can throw a little bit of salt in that dry brushing to add some extra texturing. We're not really doing any of the shadowing right now. We are just putting in all of the dry brushing. We're not doing the little fine lines. That will come later. You can use a little bit of shadowing if you're separating out some garlic skin from the garlic. But again, all of that shadowing and stuff you can do later. You just want to go garlic clove to garlic clove and get all of your dry brushing in. I did do a couple of them so that you could get an idea. So I will just let you watch the video for a little bit so that you can see what and how I am dry brushing. Now I am going to put some heavy black behind my roots because that's what's going to help to make the roots stand out when I paint them in later. So after I'm finished doing most of my texturing, I will dry everything first really well. You want to make sure it's all dry. You want to make sure that you take off most of your salting. And then I'm going to wet around the perimeter of where my dark black would be behind the roots. I want to wet that first so that when I put my black in, it will have a nice soft blend and bleed going out in all directions. So you want to extend your water past where you're going to be putting your black. You want it to be nice and dark because this is what's going to help your roots stand out. So you need it to be nice and dark. Otherwise, when you paint your roots in with our little bit of sienna and umber, you're not going to be able to see them as well because the background behind that, the color behind that, won't be nice and dark. So you want that coloring behind your roots to be nice and dark. You can keep adding some black until you get it dark enough because of course we're not taking our biscuit off till the very, very end. I am going to use some watered down black also to be setting apart some of my garlic skin that is loose around the garlic. So I will be shadowing under that skin on the garlic to help to separate that out. And that's going to be done just with some watered down black, and then I will soften the edge. So you decide if you have any of that loose skin, if you drew any of that in. If you didn't, then you don't even have to worry about it. You can just, ignore this step. But if you have pieces of skin, you want to separate them out from the garlic clove by painting underneath them and softening the edge. Now you're going to continue to work on your other cloves of garlic, just as you did this one. All of your dry brushing, then a little bit of your shadowing on any skin pieces around your garlic. And if it's a piece of garlic that shows its roots, then you want to put in some nice dark area behind those roots. So you're just going to go ahead and do all of your garlic cloves the same. Dry brushing the shape of the clove. You don't want to go straight up and down unless it's the one directly in front of you. You want to arch them to the left or arch them to the right, whichever way those cloves are going. Mix up your colors. Don't do it all in just watered down black. Put some umber in there. Put some sienna in there. It's all nice and watered down. And remember to leave white areas. You want to make sure that you leave white on your garlic. Now once all of your garlic pieces are done, you want to try to take off as much salting as possible. And now we are going to fill in the spaces where there is no garlic. Those will be dark black. You can water it down a little bit, but you don't want to water it down too much because you want those black spaces to be intensely dark. Just black. Now finishing your black, you want to dry it really well. And we're going to start to do some shaping of the garlic. The cloves are individual cloves underneath that skin. So they create an effect of being together in sections like a pumpkin almost. So you want to separate out those sections just with some shadowing. Watered down black, you want to go up the side of the section and then at the bottom off to each side and soften your edges with water. Now you don't have to do that on every single clove section, but you want to pick some that are the most evident, maybe the biggest ones or the ones that might be in the brightest light, and you want to shadow those so that your eye knows that these pieces of garlic are those whole cloves with all the individual pieces under the skin. You can continue to do this, or you can start to add some of your other shadowing and go back to your individual clove dividers. But you're going to start to shadow also. And I took one piece of garlic at a time from my picture and I followed the shadowing. If the bottom of the clove was shadowed and had a soft blend, then I painted it in with some watered down black and softened the upper edge. If there's just a little bit of a shadow on the garlic from another piece of garlic hanging over it, then I just simply added that shadow. The other pieces of garlic that are set back in, those get totally covered with a shadow because you want to push them away from the top, from the front of your picture. You want to push them underneath. And the only way to do that is with your shadowing. You can watch the video ahead a little bit and see how I completed one piece of garlic and then work on it. Or you can at least watch ahead to see how I did one certain shadow so that you're not, doing more work than you have to. To set this piece of garlic way back in, you want this piece of garlic to be underneath all of the rest. So this is the one that I talked about, total shadow. We're pushing it out of the foreground of the picture and we're pushing it down so that it's underneath all of the garlic pieces that are getting light. And the only way to do that is to cover it in totally with shadow. This is watered down black. It looks like it's really dark, but it'll dry lighter and you'll still be able to see that piece of garlic. Now once you have all of your shadows in, you're going to use your fine rigger and you're going to start to put in the little thin vein lines that you see in the skin of the garlic. I used both watered down umber mixed with a little bit of black. Some veins I used just sienna, so you can decide. You don't have to do 25 veins on every piece of garlic, but you want to put them where it's evident and where you'll see it, so that your eye will tell your brain that all of those pieces have small vein lines on them, but you're actually only painting it on a few. You will know where you think you need a vein line. And just like anything else, less is better. You can always add these little vein lines. You cannot take them off. So less is better. I did one piece of garlic at a time. You can change up your colors. They can be watered down black, they can be burnt umber, or they can be sienna. Whichever color suits that particular piece of garlic. Now you want to make sure that everything is done and you are happy with everything. You're happy with your shadows. You're happy with your lines. You want to make sure that everything that is done so far is complete and you are good with it, because the next step is taking off your misket. And if we remove the misket and then you decide you need to do something else, then you have to paint around all of your white root lines, and that could be more difficult than you'd like. So you want to make sure that everything is finished, everything is good, and then you can remove your misket. Now to color in your roots. The area of the roots that is in front of the darkest black areas, you can just paint as a whole entity. You don't have to paint each individual root. I'm using burnt umber mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna and watering it down. But as you get away from that darkened area, as you get away from the area that has black behind it, then you have to paint the individual white lines, or you'll just end up with a big brown circle, which you do not want. So you can paint the roots as one entity, only the spots that are in front of your blackened area. Otherwise, you have to use your smaller brush and paint your individual roots. I did throw some salt on the area where the blackened area is behind it, because that is going to give additional texturing to my roots. Take your time with this. You're not in any great hurry. Use your small brush to paint in those little individual roots, because you want them to be nice and thin. You don't want these big fat lines to make it look like there's worms coming out of the bottom of your garlic. You want nice, light, thin lines. You're going to be doing that on all of your garlic roots. The garlic roots that is in the piece of garlic that is in heavy shadow, I added black to that color for the roots so that they would be darker and look like they were already shadowed. That way I didn't have to go back in and try to shadow them. Follow your picture. Take your time. If you follow your picture, you will be able to see exactly what you need to do. I salted the areas where the roots were the thickest, because that gave me some additional texturing. If you forget to salt, it's not really going to matter, but what you could do is when everything is dry, you could use your fan brush and splatter that same area with a little bit of black, watered down black. It'll still give you the look of some texturing, but it will be black instead of taking your root coloring back to lighter. great painting. It's as if you could just reach in there and take out a couple of those pieces of garlic. The depth to the garlic is wonderful, and that's all because of your shadowing. Shadowing is so, so very important. So don't leave out your shadowing. It's okay to get dark on some of your shadows. That's the purpose of a shadow. Great job. Good job. I love still life paintings, and I love garlic, even though it does have a special aroma. Thanks for joining us on this tutorial, and happy painting.